The chosen one just walked in, and the entire room went dead silent. It's not just a pause in conversation. It's a moment where the world, or at least this room, completely shifts on its axis. That's the effect you have now. You can feel it, can't you? The way everything stilled the second you entered. It wasn't just your presence. It was the sheer power behind it. A presence that didn't need to announce itself because it was already felt. Every person in that room, all the agents, the strategists, the ones who once thought they controlled the game, now they're all suddenly staring at you in their silence. It's not respect. It's fear. Pure, unfiltered fear. Because they know. They've always known deep down, but now it's undeniable. The moment you step in, the whole narrative shifts. The ones who used to talk slick, they're silent. The ones who laughed at your dreams, they're waiting in fear, hoping the universe doesn't prove them wrong again. Every person in that room was already calculating how they'd write you off, how they'd box you in, how they'd control you. But now they realize their biggest mistake. They underestimated the chosen one. You didn't come in here begging for validation. You didn't come in here apologizing for being who you are. No, you came in with the weight of every battle you've ever fought and won. And it shows. You are walking, breathing proof that they can't keep you down. You're not the person they tried to break. You're not the person they thought you'd stay. You're the one they thought they could destroy. But instead, you turned every wound into armor, every setback into strength. And now they have to watch you rise. Like the Bible says, the stone which the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Matthew 21:42. You are that stone, and those who once ignored you, those who thought you were too much, now they're faced with the terrifying truth. You are the very foundation of everything they never saw coming. They built their world with lies. They built their walls with fear. But you've demolished those walls. You're standing on the ruins of everything they thought was secure, ready to build something new. And now they can't control you. They can't predict you. They can't even understand you. When you walked in, their plans didn't just falter, they collapsed. They had everything planned out, but you're the glitch they never accounted for. Their system was designed to trap the weak. But you broke free. You don't just play the game, you're rewriting it. The question now is, are you ready to show them exactly what they're up against? Because once you've crossed this threshold, there's no going back. They'll never see you the same way again. So let them stare in silence. Because that silence is the only response they can muster. When they realize the chosen one has arrived and there's no turning back. The room isn't just silent. It's vibrating with the palpable realization that they've been wrong about you. Every eye locked on you feels the shift in the air. The power you carry is undeniable. And just as it hits them, they're forced to confront the truth they never wanted to face. The ones who doubted you are now haunted by their own ignorance. The voices that once laughed at you, the ones who scoffed at your dreams and told you that you'd never amount to anything. Now they can't even look you in the eye. They can't say a word. Why? Because they know it's all over for them. It's funny, isn't it? How quick they were to label you, to box you in, to convince themselves that you were nothing more than a fleeting moment of weakness, a brief spectacle of failure waiting to implode. But look at you now. They underestimated you. They wrote you off. They feared you would collapse. But instead, you've built an empire from the wreckage of their lies. The whispers in the corners of the room are deafening. Those who once mocked your every move, laughed when you fell, and cheered when you were down, now stand paralyzed in the face of the power you've grown into. They're reeling, trying to process how you're not only still standing, but stronger than ever. And deep down, they all know it. They never stood a chance against the force you've become. Like the Bible tells us, they will be destroyed, but you will stand tall, like a tree planted by rivers of water, bearing fruit in due season. Psalm 1:3. They planted their doubts, but you've taken root in your own strength. And now their doubts are withering, while your power is blooming. They thought they were controlling the narrative, but you've snatched it right out of their hands. The world around them is changing, and they're witnessing you rise unstoppable from the ashes they thought would consume you. Remember the faces of those who laughed. They are the ones who are now being forced to watch the rise of a force they could never predict. Their silence speaks louder than any words they could have ever said. Because what they fear most now is the simple fact that they can't stop you anymore. You've become the one thing they didn't plan for a force beyond their control. A force that can't be tamed. A force that didn't just survive but conquered, and now they're left trying to figure out how to deal with it. They thought you were just another casualty waiting to happen. A momentary blip in the chaos of life. They underestimated you. They saw your struggle and mistook it for weakness, your silence for submission, your quiet for defeat. But what they failed to realize is that everything they threw at you only served one purpose: to forge you into something they could never comprehend. And now, as the truth unfolds, they're left in the dust, wondering how they lost control of a game they thought they had locked down. The truth is, you weren't just surviving. You were evolving. You were being remade, like iron under fire. Your transformation wasn't messy. It was methodical, calculated. While they watched you stumble, they didn't see the engine inside you turning. While they mocked your every move, they didn't know that you were studying, learning, adapting. You were becoming the weapon they feared, but never saw coming. Now, they stand in the wake of your evolution, dumbfounded, unable to comprehend how you became this. The same people who once said you'd never rise. Now they're staring at you, watching you with wide eyes, trying to figure out how you pulled it off. They can't even predict what you'll do next, and that's what terrifies them most. The Bible says, "Behold, I make all things new." Revelation 21:5. This wasn't just a comeback. This was a rebirth. You weren't merely bouncing back from failure. You were shedding the skin of who they thought you were, stepping into the next phase of your destiny. And now, like a lion, finally freed from the cage, they realize the one they tried to cage was never meant to be controlled. What they thought was a broken spirit was actually a quietly burning flame, a force waiting for its moment to ignite. And now, you can't be contained. You're not just moving through life anymore. You are life's hurricane, unpredictable, untamable, and unstoppable. They expected you to be a story of brokenness, but instead, you became a saga of strength. They thought you'd fall, but now they're watching you rise higher than they ever imagined. You were dismissed, overlooked, underestimated, and now you're standing tall, the very thing they never thought would happen. Now, every move you make sends shockwaves through the world they tried to control. The strategies they once used to manipulate you, they don't work anymore. Every attempt to box you and label you or predict you is met with one truth: you've outgrown them. And they know it. You are the force they cannot control, the storm they thought they could weather. Your transformation is complete. And now, as you stand before them, they know there's no going back. The game has changed forever. They thought you'd come back loud, emotional, ready to prove something to everyone who ever doubted you. They were waiting for the dramatic return, the grand speech, the storm of rage or revenge. But what they didn't expect, the silence that not only spoke volumes, but made them question everything they thought they knew about you. Silence. It It's an underestimated force. People who rely on noise to get attention to exert power always forget that the most terrifying thing in the world is the person who has mastered the art of silence. And you've become a master. You didn't come back with words or flashy gestures. You didn't give them the satisfaction of feeding into their predictions. No, you came back with quiet confidence, and that silence became your loudest weapon. Imagine the room. At first, they're all waiting for you to react, to make a move to give them something. They can read something they can control. But you stood there, calm, unwavering, collecting every ounce of their energy without uttering a word. That's when they knew something had changed. They couldn't read you anymore. You were no longer the open book they had marked up with their own opinions. You were the mystery they couldn't decipher. The quiet that spread across the room wasn't just a pause, it was a shift. They were waiting for you to show weakness, to expose that old version of you they thought they could manipulate. But you didn't give them that satisfaction. You didn't break under the weight of their stares. You simply stood there, letting the silence speak for itself. In their minds, they thought silence meant surrender. It was a vacuum, a space for them to fill, a moment to make assumptions and push their narratives onto you. But that silence wasn't your defeat. It was your strength. Every second of quiet made them squirm. They thought they could control the story, but the truth was you had already taken control, and you didn't need noise to do it. The Bible teaches us, "Be still and know that I am God." Psalm 46:10. There's a power in stillness that can shake entire foundations. Your silence wasn't a retreat. It was a reaffirmation of your presence. It was you showing them that you don't need to beg for attention, that you don't need to fight for respect. Your presence alone is enough to disrupt their world. Think about it. In their world, noise equals power. It's the loudest person who's heard the most chaotic one who commands attention. But you've learned that the loudest voice often gets drowned out in the noise, while the quietest person in the room can move mountains. You've learned that true power is not in the volume of your words, but in the depth of your silence. It's in the unspoken understanding that you've evolved, and the world must now reckon with that evolution. They were used to seeing you as the emotional one, the one who reacted. They wanted you to be that person again, the one who stumbled, who was predictable, who would make a mistake out of emotion. But instead, you've turned that predictable chaos into a quiet storm. They wanted to manipulate you with guilt, fear, shame, but you shut those channels down with a wall of stillness. And now, they have no idea how to move forward. They don't know how to approach you. They can't read you anymore. You've gone dark on them, and now you're the one who holds all the power. Their fear isn't in your rage. Their fear isn't even in your actions. It's in your ability to remain calm, unbothered, and undistracted by the noise. The more you withdraw, the more they scramble. You've become the untraceable force. You've learned how to move in the world without being part of it. Your silence isn't absence, it's presence. And now that you've mastered that, they know you can't be manipulated anymore. This is the moment when the game changes. They were waiting for you to collapse, to get caught up in their drama, to fall back into the pattern they've built for you. But instead, they're seeing the truth. You're not reacting anymore. You're calculating, observing, and moving with a purpose they can't even fathom. And that scares them more than anything else. Because the real terror they're facing isn't that you'll explode in anger. It's that you've learned how to be so still, so quiet, that they can't figure you out. The silence has become the most dangerous thing they've ever encountered. It's the weapon that can't be stopped. And in that stillness, you've gained the upper hand. You've shown them that silence is not a sign of weakness. It's the final marker of a transformation that they were never prepared for. What they couldn't grasp, what they couldn't even begin to understand, was that your silence was never about surrender. It was evolution. They thought that when you stopped reacting, when you withdrew from their expectations, you had lost your fight. But in truth, you had just entered a whole new phase of your power, a phase where your strength was no longer dictated by external noise or chaos. Silence wasn't your weakness. It was the epitome of your strength. Every second of stillness wasn't an empty void. It was a powerful recalibration. You weren't retreating. You were building. You were quiet, yes, but not passive. You were studying. You were listening. You were observing everything they missed in their frantic scramble to control you. Your silence became the ground from which your next move would emerge, strategic, calculated, and unstoppable. They never saw it coming. They thought silence meant defeat, that without shouting, without demanding attention, you would fade into obscurity. But they were wrong. What they didn't realize was that in your stillness, you were developing something far more terrifying than any outburst of anger or frustration, a mind that moved with intent, a spirit that was no longer swayed by their manipulation or expectations. You had outgrown them. You had outgrown their system. You were no longer part of the predictable game they played. And that realization hit them like a hammer to the chest. The Bible says, in quietness and trust is your strength. Isaiah 30:15. That wasn't just a verse. It was your way of life. You were no longer the emotional one. You had turned your vulnerability into a weapon, your pain into precision. The more they tried to push your buttons, the more you pulled back, and the more they realized they couldn't get to you. They couldn't reach you anymore. The silence you carry now is nothing like the silence they were used to. It isn't the silence of someone who has been defeated, who has been broken down into nothing. It's the silence of someone who has built themselves from the ground up, who has walked through hell and emerged stronger on the other side. Every moment of quiet is the weight of a transformation they never saw coming. You're not just hiding from the world, you're preparing to change it. And that's where they made their fatal mistake. They assumed that when you stopped reacting, you had stopped evolving. They thought you were waiting for someone to throw the first stone, waiting for the right moment to fight back. But you had already surpassed the need to fight. You were no longer part of their game. You were the storm that would sweep through their carefully constructed world, and they were too blinded by their own arrogance to see it until it was too late. What they didn't know is that your silence wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. You had learned something they never could, that true strength is found in the ability to withstand the noise, to pull away from the chaos, and in that space to grow. In that silence, you found your true power. The fear they feel now isn't because they see a defeated version of you. It's because they see someone who has evolved beyond the limitations they placed on you. You've learned how to stay calm in the face of uncertainty, to wait patiently for the perfect moment to strike. Your silence is the calm before the storm they aren't ready for. You are no longer reacting. You are anticipating. You are controlling the narrative in ways they can't comprehend. And now they're left scrambling, trying to understand how to read you, how to predict you, how to regain control. But they can't. They've lost. Because the person they once thought they could manipulate is now the one who holds all the cards. Your silence has become a force. They can't predict a power they can't tame. And that's what terrifies them the most. They thought they knew you. They thought they had you figured out every move, every weakness, every emotional trigger. They had you pegged as just another casualty, just another soul, waiting to break under the weight of life. But now, They're watching you in silence, and they realize the truth. They never understood you. It's in the stillness where the world changes. It's in the quiet moments where enemies start to shift uncomfortably, eyes darting, trying to read you, trying to predict your next move. They can't. They don't know who you are anymore. That person they once thought was weak, unpredictable, a simple target. Now they're the ones who are predictable. Now they're the ones who have to second-guess every move, every word, every interaction. They realize something. You're not the same. In the past, when you were emotional reactive, when you allowed your pain to show, they thought they had you trapped. They could see when you were angry, when you were vulnerable, when you were breaking. But now you're a ghost to them. You've shut down every entry point they once exploited, your silence. It terrifies them. They don't know where you've gone, what you're thinking, or who you've become, but they know they can't touch you. And the fear that they once projected onto you, it's now theirs to carry. And then there are the former friends, the ones who once thought you'd always be their emotional punching bag, the ones who believed they could call the shots in your life. They thought they could play the game and use you as their pawn, but now that you're no longer the same person they used to control, they're no longer sure what role they play in your world. Now they're strategic. Suddenly, they're watching every move you make, scrutinizing your words, trying to figure out who you are, what you're doing, and why you're doing it. The game has changed, and they know it. They no longer have the upper hand. They've lost their ability to manipulate you. They're forced to recalculate their position, adjust their approach, and become more cautious because the person they once took advantage of is now the one setting the terms. The world, too, has started to pay attention. People who once ignored you, overlooked your potential, and dismissed your dreams are now looking at you with curiosity and, yes, fear. There's a shift happening in the way people view you. The narrative has changed. The underdog they thought would fall is now the force they can't afford to underestimate. They see the calm in your eyes, and they know you're not just here to survive anymore. You're here to reign. And in all of this, the truth becomes clearer than ever. You are not a part of the game. You've become the one who's rewriting the rules. While they were busy trying to control the pieces, you were silently preparing yourself for a moment no one saw coming. Now, the world is on edge, waiting to see what you'll do next. And as they watch you move in silence, they know one thing for certain. You're no longer predictable. Your silence has become the ultimate disruption, and the world is scrambling to keep up. What they never understood is that your survival wasn't just a matter of making it through the storm. It was about becoming the storm. While they believed you were merely existing, scraping by, you were quietly transforming. Your survival wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning of a new, more powerful chapter. They thought they'd worn you down, but all they did was prepare you for a rebirth, and they didn't even see it coming. They expected you to buckle under the pressure, to crumble under the weight of their expectations, their betrayals, their attempts to break you. They assumed that the hits you took would only make you weaker, that the chaos you endured would break your spirit. What they failed to see was that with every blow, you didn't just survive. You adapted, you grew stronger, and you evolved. Your transformation wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It wasn't the kind of spectacle they expected. They were too caught up in their own plans to notice how in the midst of their attacks, you were silently evolving into something they couldn't break. They thought you were small, insignificant, just another person, caught in their system. But now you stand before them as something they could never predict, an unstoppable force. Like the Bible says, the stone which the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Matthew 21:42. They rejected you. They labeled you as broken, dismissed you as irrelevant, but now you are the very foundation of a new order, and they're left trying to understand how you became this. Survival is about endurance. Evolution is about transformation. You didn't just endure the hardships. You used them to fuel your rise. You didn't just survive your pain. You transmuted it into power. Every failure they threw at you, every setback, every lie they spun, became the very thing that reshaped you into something far greater than they ever imagined. You didn't break. You built. They saw you fall. They saw you struggle, and they thought they knew the story. But what they didn't see was the quiet work happening behind the scenes. You were silently reconstructing yourself brick by brick, piece by piece, until the version of you that stood before them was unrecognizable. You weren't the same person anymore, and they knew it the moment you walked back into their world. They thought you were emotional, impulsive, fragile. But what they didn't realize is that your depth, your sensitivity, your ability to feel everything so intensely was never a weakness. It was your greatest strength. It was the very thing that made your evolution possible. While they thought you were too much, what they didn't understand was that people who feel deeply also see deeply. And seeing deeply, it gave you the power to change your path. They assumed you'd never rise again. They thought you were a victim to your circumstances, that the weight of your past would hold you down forever. But in the quiet of your transformation, you found clarity. You realized your pain wasn't meant to break you. It was meant to mold you into something stronger, more resilient, more purposeful. Your evolution was the kind that no one could predict. It wasn't the loud, dramatic kind that people would notice immediately. It was the kind that crept up on them. It was the kind of change that made them second-guess their own understanding of you. You've moved from survival to evolution, from a person who was simply enduring life to someone who is now shaping it. Now they can't figure out what to do with you. They thought you were the same person who used to take hits and stay down, but now you're the one delivering the hits. You've moved beyond their reach, beyond their understanding. They tried to control, curate you, and use you, but instead, you've become the force they can't stop. This is no longer about survival. This is about power. The power you gained in silence, in solitude, in struggle. The power they never thought you'd find. And now they have no choice but to watch you rise. They saw the external chaos, the setbacks, the failures, the struggles, and they mistook them for signs of weakness. They thought the cracks in your exterior were signs that you were breaking, that you were on the verge of collapse. But they couldn't see the quiet transformation taking place within. While they were busy judging your journey from the outside, they missed the most important thing: you were evolving in ways they couldn't comprehend. They couldn't see your internal growth. They couldn't see the quiet moments where you rebuilt your mind, reshaped your beliefs, and redefined your purpose. They only saw the surface, the visible struggle, and they interpreted it as defeat. They didn't realize that each obstacle you faced, each challenge you overcame, was molding you into a version of yourself that was far stronger than they could ever imagine. While they focused on your outward appearances, your mistakes, your emotional reactions, your so-called failures, you were busy mastering yourself on the inside. You were learning to control your thoughts, your emotions, your desires, and in doing so, you were transforming your very essence. They thought you were lost, when in reality, you were finding your true self. They were blinded by their assumptions about you. They thought your struggles were signs of weakness, that your moments of vulnerability meant you lacked resilience. But in truth, those were the moments when your true strength was being forged. The struggle didn't break you, it shaped you. Like the Bible says, man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. 1 Samuel 16:7. They looked at your outer shell and misjudged your heart. They couldn't see the quiet work you were doing on the inside. The work of healing, of growing, of becoming the person you were meant to be. What they didn't understand is that true strength doesn't always roar. It doesn't always make a grand entrance or demand attention. Sometimes the deepest growth happens in the quiet when no one is watching. It's in those private moments, those small, seemingly insignificant decisions to keep going, to keep learning, to keep improving, that the real transformation happens. You didn't need to advertise your internal growth. You didn't need to explain your process. You simply allowed the transformation to happen in silence because you knew that the version of you that emerged would speak for itself. And now, as they stand before you, they realize just how deeply you've changed. What they thought were cracks in your foundation were just the growing pains of someone becoming untouchable. They underestimated the depth of your strength, the power of your resilience. They couldn't see that the battles you fought on the inside, those wars they never saw, were the ones that truly defined you. And now, when they look at you, they're faced with the undeniable truth: the person they doubted has become someone they can never control. They didn't see the internal growth, and that's why they're terrified now. Because what they once thought was a weakness has become your greatest strength. They thought they had you figured out. They knew how you'd react to every situation, every insult, every betrayal, every challenge. They could read you like an open book, predicting your emotional outbursts, your frustration, your desperate need for validation. But what they didn't anticipate was the moment you stopped reacting the way they expected. They didn't see it coming. The shift from impulsive emotion to calculated precision, and now they're left with one undeniable truth: you are no longer the person they thought they could control. This shift wasn't sudden. It was the culmination of everything you had learned. Every time you allowed yourself to be provoked, every time you gave in to your anger or frustration, you were silently studying the consequences. You realized that emotional reactions only left you vulnerable, only gave others the power to manipulate you. And so, in the silence of your inner evolution, you made a choice. No longer would your actions be dictated by the heat of the moment. From this point forward, every move would be measured, intentional, and strategic. You stopped allowing the noise of the world to dictate your pace. You stopped letting other people's opinions or emotions control your response. You learned to think before you acted, to pause before you reacted, and in doing so, you became the master of your own narrative. Every decision, every word, every step you took became a calculated move in a game they didn't even realize they were playing. What once triggered emotional reactions now triggers thoughtful responses. You began to recognize that your greatest power was in the ability to control your impulses, to stay calm in the face of chaos, and to act when it served your purpose, not out of frustration or emotion. The more you practiced this, the more you became a force that could no longer be read, a force that could no longer be predicted. Like the Bible says, a wise man is strong, yea, a man of knowledge increaseth strength. Proverbs 24:5. You no longer reacted from a place of weakness. You learned to act from a place of strength. And that strength was rooted in your wisdom, the wisdom to pause, to reflect, and to move with purpose. Now, when they look at you, they no longer see the person they once knew, the one who wore their emotions on their sleeve, the one who could be provoked, the one who would fall for their tricks. Now they see someone they can't figure out. Your actions are no longer an open book. They're a carefully crafted plan, and that scares them more than anything. Because when you become someone who no longer reacts emotionally, you become someone who is untouchable. Your presence, unpredictable. Your moves, calculated. They thought they could manipulate you. They thought they could throw you off balance with their chaos, but they were wrong. Now you've learned the art of silence, of stillness, of purpose. You don't react to the world. You shape it. You no longer give away your power by responding to every provocation. Now you reserve your energy for what truly matters, and that's a presence no one can predict or control. And that's why they're afraid, because they know they've lost their hold on you. They can no longer count on their usual tactics to provoke you, to bait you into a reaction. You've transcended their game. You are no longer a player. You are the game itself. And the truth is, no one knows the rules to this game except for you. They tried to write your story for you. They tried to pigeonhole you into a mold that they created based on their own limited perceptions. They told you who you were supposed to be, how you were supposed to act, what your life was supposed to look like. But you refused to fit into their box. Every label they slapped on you was met with the quiet defiance of someone who knew their true potential was not bound by the limitations of others' expectations. You didn't just break the mold, they never even saw it coming. They thought you would remain the same. They thought you would follow their rules, play by their game, and follow the path they set out for you. But what they failed to grasp was that the path you were meant to walk was never theirs to dictate. While they were busy writing your narrative, you were busy rewriting it. And that's where they made their fatal mistake. They underestimated you because they only saw what was on the surface. They never saw the fire burning beneath. They never saw the depth of your resilience, the strength that came from your struggles, the wisdom that came from your pain. They thought they had you figured out, too emotional, too impulsive, too sensitive, too this, too that. But those very things they tried to break you with, they became the driving force that fueled your evolution. And now, instead of being their victim, you've become the one they fear. Like the Bible says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." Jeremiah 29:11. The plans they made for you, they never mattered. You were never meant to walk in the shadows of their expectations. You were meant to carve out your own path, a path that no one could predict, no one could control. You didn't just reject the mold they tried to put you in, you shattered it. Every expectation they had for you, every story they tried to tell about who you were became nothing more than dust in the wind. They wanted you to stay small, to stay within their comfort zone, to be someone they could control. But you grew. You outgrew everything they tried to make you. Now, you are the standard. You are the force that defines the new narrative. And here's the thing. They never saw the depth of your transformation. They thought you were just surviving, just hanging on. But in reality, you were rising. You were evolving, you were becoming. They tried to write a story of struggle, of loss, of defeat, but you rewrote that story. Now the narrative is yours, and it's one they can never control. Your evolution was never about proving them wrong. It was about proving yourself right. It was about stepping into your true power and refusing to let anyone else define your worth or your destiny. The person you've become is someone they could never have anticipated. You were never meant to play by their rules. You were never meant to fit into their mold. You were always meant to break the mold, to shatter every expectation, and to rise as the chosen one. And now, as you stand in your power, They can only watch as their narrative crumbles, replaced by the one you've written for yourself. They thought they could hold you back, but now they realize they were never meant to write your story. Only you were meant to do that. And with every step you take, you're rewriting the future, one they're no longer part of. It hit them like a freight train, the realization that they could no longer control you. The quiet fear crept into their minds, whispering to them that the person they thought they knew, the one they could manipulate, silence, or bend to their will, was gone. And in its place stood a force they didn't recognize, a person who no longer followed their script, no longer responded to their manipulations, a person who was untouchable. This wasn't just a shift. This was unsettling. The same people who once believed they could pull your strings now found themselves paralyzed, unsure of how to interact with you. They had mapped out your weaknesses, studied your patterns, and used your vulnerabilities against you. But now, every familiar tactic that once had power over you now bounced off like arrows hitting armor. They felt the grip they once had over your life slip, and with it, a fear they couldn't control. They thought you were predictable, emotional, reactive, desperate for approval. They knew exactly how to push you, how to make you bend to their will. But now, they're lost. They don't know what to expect from you anymore. They don't know how to get to you. Every move they try to make is met with a calm, a clarity, a silence that they cannot decipher. And that scares them more than anything. Think about it. For years, they saw you as a pawn in their game, a simple piece they could move when it suited them. But now they've discovered that you've become the game, and they have no idea how to play. The roles have reversed. You're not the one being controlled anymore. You've taken the reins. The Bible speaks of a moment when the Israelites were delivered from Egypt, and they looked back and saw their enemies overwhelmed by the sea. The enemy you see today, you will never see again. Exodus 14:14. That's what they're facing now. The version of you they thought they could control, gone. Now they're left to deal with a version of you they can't possibly comprehend. The chains they thought they could use to bind you, they no longer exist. You've outgrown their influence, and they know it. The fear in their eyes is the fear of losing control, not just over you, but over everything they thought they understood. They thought they had all the power, but now the very thing that terrified them the most is staring them in the face: your independence. Your ability to make decisions without needing validation. Your capacity to rise above their expectations. Your refusal to be boxed in by their limitations. They're not afraid of you because you've become weak. They're terrified because you've become strong in ways they never imagined. Your growth, your evolution, has exposed their fragility. They realize now that the person they tried to break is the one who is now unbreakable. And that realization, it's terrifying. Now, as they watch you stand tall in your power, they know something they can never take back. They've lost their hold over you. They're left with nothing but the bitter truth that they were never in control of you. You were always in control of your own destiny. And now that they see you've embraced that power, the fear is real. They know they can't stop you anymore. They've spent years trying to figure you out. They've examined every move, dissected every word, and scrutinized every action. They've labeled you, categorized. You put you into neat little boxes to feel comfortable in their understanding of who you are. But every time they think they've pinned you down, every time they think they've cracked the code, you slip through their fingers like sand. You're the glitch they can't track. You're the anomaly that throws off every system they've designed to control, predict, and manipulate people like you. You don't fit any mold. You don't adhere to the rules. You refuse to be reduced to a profile a set of predictable traits that they can understand and manipulate. And that's what terrifies them the most. They were used to seeing people as patterns, as systems of data that could be easily categorized, but with you, everything they thought they knew becomes irrelevant. They try to apply their frameworks to you, but they keep getting error messages. The more they dig, the more frustrated they become, because no matter how much they try, they can't get the answers they seek. Your choices aren't logical to them. Your actions don't follow the cause and effect patterns they expect. You're unpredictable. And that unpredictability, it's a virus in their perfect system. A virus, they can't stop a bug that disrupts the entire program. You don't just break their expectations. You make them question everything. In their world, everything has a label. Everything is categorized and understood. They've spent their lives managing outcomes, tracking behaviors, controlling the narrative. But with you, they've encountered something new, something that doesn't play by their rules, something that doesn't follow their data points. You're the human equivalent of a glitch in the matrix. They don't know how to handle it, and the more they try, the more they fail. You've become their greatest nightmare, a variable they can't predict. The Bible says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways." Isaiah 55:8. They thought they understood you. They thought they could figure you out, box you into their system of understanding. But you've proven them wrong. Your evolution, your transformation, is a direct contradiction to everything they've believed about you. You've shown them that their systems don't work on people like you, people who think outside the box, people who live beyond their frameworks, people who rewrite the rules. They wanted to label you as broken, as easy to control, as someone who would always conform to their standards. But you flipped that script. You don't fit into any category, any stereotype, any expectation they tried to place on you. And that's why they're panicking. Every time they try to track your movements, every time they try to predict your next move, you're already somewhere else. You've become the question they can't answer. You're not part of their neat little system of control. You've broken free from their rules, and now you're walking in a world that doesn't have answers for you. You don't fit their mold, and that's exactly what makes you so dangerous. The concept of a glitch is simple. It's the error, the outlier, the thing that doesn't follow the system. And you're that glitch. You've shattered every framework they tried to build around you. And now they're left in confusion, desperately trying to understand how they lost control of someone who was never theirs to control in the first place. Section 4. The unpredictable nature of power. The chosen one's power lies in their unpredictability and ability to evolve beyond expectations. What makes the chosen one dangerous isn't just their strength, their intellect, or their drive. It's their unpredictability. They are a force that doesn't follow the rules, doesn't move according to the expectations of others, and doesn't allow the world to dictate their path. The very fact that they cannot be predicted is what makes them unstoppable. And that's the power no one can control. They tried to label you, to put you in a box, to track your movements like a system that could be managed. They thought they understood your limits, your boundaries, your triggers. But they didn't see what you were really capable of. They didn't understand that your true power isn't in any static form. It's in your ability to constantly evolve, to shift when the world thinks it knows your next move. Every time they think they have you cornered, you transform. You don't just react to the world around you. You shape it. You're not a player in their game. You're the one rewriting the rules. Your evolution isn't a series of calculated moves. It's a leap beyond the expectations of what anyone thought possible. You don't just survive challenges. You learn from them, adapt, and come back stronger again and again. They underestimated your resilience. They underestimated your growth. And now they're watching as you rise in ways that terrify them. Like the Bible says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Philippians 4:13. Your strength doesn't lie in staying the same. It lies in your ability to transcend limitations, to evolve into something greater each time you face adversity. They wanted you to stay predictable, to stay within the confines of their understanding of you. But you're constantly outgrowing them. Your unpredictability isn't chaos, it's strategy. Every move you make is deliberate, even if it's unexpected. They can't fathom your next step, and that's what keeps them on edge. You've mastered the art of redefinition, of continuously shifting and evolving in ways that leave others grasping for understanding. You're not a fixed point in time. You're a fluid force that adapts moves and strikes when it suits your purpose. This unpredictability isn't a flaw, it's a strength. It's a weapon. When they thought you were down, when they thought you had no more fight left, you emerged evolving into a form they hadn't prepared for. You didn't just come back, you came back transformed, sharper and impossible to control. They thought they could manage you by categorizing your behavior, but you've made it clear you can't be contained. And as you continue to evolve, as you continue to defy their expectations, the truth becomes clear. Your true power lies not in being predictable, but in your ability to redefine what's possible. The more they try to confine you, the more you grow beyond them. Your unpredictability is your greatest weapon, and they will never learn how to handle it. They tried to create a system that could predict people's movements, control their actions, and limit their potential. But with you, their system is broken. You are the glitch, the unpredictable force they never anticipated, and as you evolve, you become more powerful, more dangerous, and more uncontrollable. The chosen one isn't just a person who rises. They're a force of nature that reshapes the world around them, bending it to their will. And that's the most terrifying truth of all. You can't be predicted. You've become the very thing. They fear the person who transcends their rules, who evolves beyond their limits, and who rewrites the narrative. And no matter how hard they try to understand you, no matter how much they attempt to define your actions, they'll always be one step behind. The moment they realize they can no longer control you, the atmosphere changes. It's like watching the world freeze. The people who once held power over you suddenly become uncertain. They've spent years studying you, tracking your every move, analyzing your patterns like predictable equations. But now nothing makes sense. You've become an enigma to them. You've shattered their understanding of who you are, and they're left scrambling, trying to figure out how to approach you, how to manipulate you, how to control what they can no longer predict. And that is their greatest fear. In the past, they could easily guess how you'd react to their provocations, how far they could push you before you'd break. They thought they had you figured out: emotional, impulsive, reactive. But now, everything has changed. Your silence, your calm, your sudden ability to defy expectations sends shockwaves through the room, leaving everyone on edge. They don't know what's coming next. They don't know how to provoke you, how to control you. All their power over you gone. They've lost the ability to predict you. And without that, their control slips away like sand through their fingers. It's a kind of panic they don't know how to hide. They're trying to figure you out, to read your eyes, your posture, the smallest movements you make, but they're left grasping at straws. Every attempt to categorize you, to assign labels, or understand your motivations falls flat. They're searching for patterns, but you're not a pattern anymore. You've become unpredictable, like a storm that no one saw coming. and it terrifies them. They were used to people like you, people who could be manipulated, broken, or pushed into submission. But you've outgrown them. You've transcended the limits they set for you. And now they can't control you the way they once did. The old methods no longer work. They don't know how to bait you anymore, how to provoke you into action, or how to draw out the reactions they once exploited for their gain. Like the Bible warns, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world." Ephesians 6:12. The real struggle they face isn't with you. It's with the fact that you've broken free from the system they so carefully built to control people like you. The moment they lose that grip, they realize their whole framework is a house of cards, and it's crumbling. The people who once used to surround you, the ones who believed they had the power to dictate your life, now find themselves on the defensive. They don't know how to approach you. They don't know if you'll answer them, if you'll show emotion, or if you'll react the way they expect. Every time they think they understand you, you shift, you evolve, you adapt. And that unpredictability makes you untouchable. Now they watch you from a distance, trying to decode your every move, every word, every silence. They feel the loss of control, and with that comes a deep gnawing fear that they'll never be able to reach you again. They'll never be able to bend you to their will, and they're terrified. Because here's the brutal truth: they never expected you to break free. They never expected you to rise above their grasp, to outgrow their influence. But now, you've become a force they can't control or predict, and that's the kind of power that leaves even the most powerful shaking. They're not sure if they should fear you, admire you, or try to manipulate you again. They don't know what to do anymore. You're a wild card in their neatly organized deck, and that's the last thing they ever saw coming. Now they're forced to watch as you move in a way they can never understand, and it's clear they will never be able to control you again. They thought they had control over you. They believed they could read you like a book, predict your every move, and manipulate your actions to suit their own needs. They thought they could break you, bend you, and use you as a pawn in their game. But now, as they witness the transformation you've undergone, the psychological toll hits them harder than they could have ever anticipated. The first sign of the shift was subtle. At first, they thought you were just having a moment, a brief lapse in your usual response patterns. But as time passed, as you continued to stand strong in your newfound power, they began to feel something they hadn't felt before: doubt. The same people who once confidently pulled the strings now find themselves questioning everything. They're no longer sure of what moves to make, what words to say, or how to provoke you into reacting. They can't manipulate you anymore. And that's terrifying. They spent years exploiting your emotions, your vulnerabilities, your weaknesses. Every time you showed pain, they used it against you. Every time you stumbled, they were there to remind you of your limitations. They fed on your doubts, your fears, your insecurities, convincing you that without them, you were nothing. But now, the tables have turned. You no longer need them, and they can't stand it. The Bible speaks of a time when the enemy's plans fall apart. They made their own pit, and they fell into it. Psalm 7:15. That's exactly what's happening now. The people who used to manipulate you are now trapped in the very web they wove. They are haunted by the realization that the person they once controlled has become someone who can't be controlled. And with that comes the fear that they've lost their influence, their power, their grip over you forever. As they watch you rise, as they watch you step into your true power, they feel the weight of their own actions. every cruel word, every underhanded move, every attempt to make you feel small now comes back to haunt them. They thought they were in charge, but now they're realizing they were merely using you as a means to an end. And in doing so, they've given you the greatest gift of all freedom. But that freedom is a double-edged sword. The psychological toll on them is deep. The fear is insidious. They're not sure who you are anymore, and that's what really eats at them. They don't know how to read you, how to predict you, how to influence you. They've lost control, and they can't fathom a world where you don't need them, a world where you are the one who dictates the terms. Every time they attempt to assert themselves, every time they try to manipulate or gaslight you into submission, they are met with a cold, impenetrable wall of strength. And that coldness, it's chilling. It's a psychological warfare they didn't expect, because now they're not facing a person they can play with. They're facing someone who has learned to protect themselves, someone who has learned that the real power doesn't lie in reacting. It lies in control, in calculated action, and in refusing to let anyone control your destiny. They're beginning to crack under the weight of their own guilt. They can no longer justify the way they used you. They can no longer lie to themselves, convincing themselves that they were doing what was necessary, what was right. Every moment they look at you, they are confronted with the truth. They failed to break you, and in fact, you broke them. The person they tried to keep down has now become the one they fear. And that fear, it's eating them alive. And that's the true cost of manipulation. The moment you realize the person you tried to control is no longer under your thumb. You thought you had power over them, but in reality, you were giving them the strength they needed to rise. And now, as they watch you, they're faced with the terrifying reality that they've lost their grip over you forever. You're the one in control now, and their psychological anguish is the price they're paying for underestimating you. They thought they knew what you were made of. They believed that without the right credentials, without the right systems of formal education, you would always remain limited, stagnant, and bound by the rules they had set for you. But what they failed to understand was that true knowledge doesn't come from certificates on paper or the approval of gatekeepers. It comes from the ability to learn, adapt, and grow outside the confines of traditional structures. And that's where you left them behind. While they were busy following the rules, adhering to the systems they were taught, you were quietly disrupting the very foundations of what they considered knowledge. You didn't need formal institutions to teach you. You didn't need a classroom to become wise. Instead, you took life's challenges, its pain, its failures, and turned them into lessons. Your self-taught wisdom has become your greatest weapon, and it terrifies them because they know they can't control it. The Bible speaks of wisdom beyond understanding. If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask of God, who gives to all liberally and without reproach, and it will be given to him. James 1:5. While they search for answers in the world's textbooks, you sought answers in life itself. You asked questions the system never encouraged. You learned from your mistakes and the mistakes of others. You learned from the streets, from the people, from the hardships they tried to bury. And that kind of wisdom, it can't be controlled. Your education wasn't given to you by a teacher in a classroom or a curriculum. It was forged in the fire of experience. You understood the systems that were supposed to control you. And instead of playing by their rules, you learned how to break them. You understood human behavior, power dynamics, manipulation, and strategy in a way that no one else could. You learned what they never wanted you to understand, how to outthink the system, how to operate outside the boundaries they built. And when they realized you weren't bound by the same rules they were, that's when the fear really began to settle in. They couldn't understand how you had learned to think like them and then surpass them. The more they saw you rise, the more they realized they had underestimated not just your potential, but the very depth of your mind. You weren't playing their game, you were rewriting the rules, and that's the moment their grip on you completely slipped. They thought they could control your future by controlling the paths you had to take, by limiting the knowledge available to you, by locking you into the structures of the world they had set up. But you broke free from those limitations. They thought they could stifle your growth by restricting your access to formal education. But in doing so, they only forced you to create your own path, a path that was so much more powerful because it was yours, self-made and untouchable. And that's where the fear came from. You weren't supposed to be able to do this. They had conditioned you to believe that without the right credentials, without the right validation, you'd be nothing. But you proved them wrong. Your knowledge, your wisdom, your insight has nothing to do with the systems they thought could control you. And now you've become the one who dictates the rules of the game. The fear that arose in them wasn't just fear of your knowledge, it was fear of your independence, your ability to think beyond the constraints they built for you. They had constructed a world where they controlled the flow of information, where only certain people could hold the power of knowledge. But you didn't need their system. You built your own. You created your own education, your own understanding of the world, and it's far more powerful than anything they ever taught you. Your mind is the one thing they can't control, and that realization is what shakes them to their core. They thought they could stifle your potential with their limited vision, but you have become the master of your own destiny. And as you continue to evolve, as you continue to learn from life itself, you're only growing more dangerous because you don't just think like them. You've learned how to outthink them. And that's the power they can never control. They thought you were fragile. They thought the weight of your past would break you. They saw your pain, your struggles, your emotional scars, and they thought they could use them against you. But they didn't realize something crucial. Your vulnerabilities weren't your weaknesses. They were the fuel for your transformation. Every time they tried to push you to the edge, every time they tried to exploit your fears and your guilt, you only grew stronger. You turned your pain into powers, your fears into focus, and your weaknesses into unstoppable strength. You faced the worst of yourself, the parts of you that used to break the parts of you, that used to doubt the parts of you that felt small and insignificant. But you didn't run from those demons. You didn't crumble under the weight of your past. Instead, you confronted every fear, every insecurity, and redefined them. What once held you back now propels you forward. There was a time when the world could make you feel small, when the opinions of others, the judgments of those around you, could rattle you to your core. But now you are untouchable. You've developed a resilience that cannot be broken, a psychological fortitude that no one can shake. They thought they could control you with fear, guilt, or shame, but those tactics no longer work on someone who has learned to master their own emotions. Your emotional resilience has become your greatest weapon. When others tried to manipulate you by playing on your vulnerabilities, you recognized their game. You stopped reacting out of fear. You started responding from a place of power. The Bible says, "The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in Him, and He helps me." Psalm 28:7. Your strength now comes from within. Your foundation is solid. No one can make you doubt yourself because you've already conquered the hardest battle, the battle with yourself. They thought they could control you through guilt, through emotional manipulation by reminding you of your past mistakes or weaknesses. But you've already forgiven yourself, and in doing so, you've taken away the power they once had over you. You've shed the weight of shame and guilt that they tried to hang around your neck, and now your spirit is free. You are no longer the victim of your circumstances. You are the one who decides how to move forward, how to rise above, and how to turn every challenge into an opportunity. And that's the turning point for them, the moment they realize that you're not just a person who survives adversity. You've become someone who thrives in it. The more they push you, the more they try to break you, the more you rise. The more they try to hold you down, the higher you soar. You've learned how to transform pain into power, and that's something they can't comprehend. It's the reason why they can no longer manipulate or control you. They tried to break you with fear, guilt, and emotional tactics, but you've transcended them. The true realization that strikes them, that terrifies them more than anything else, is that you are unstoppable, not because of external threats, but because you've learned how to transform from within. You've mastered your own mind, your own emotions, your own heart. You've learned that true power doesn't come from the world around you. It comes from the strength you cultivate inside yourself. You are a walking testament to the idea that true power isn't about fighting external enemies. It's about mastering yourself. You've built an unshakable foundation of emotional and psychological resilience, and that makes you unstoppable. The world can throw its hardest punches at you, but it no longer matters because you've learned how to turn each hit into a lesson, each setback into a stepping stone. And now, nothing can break you. The ones who once thought they could control you, make you bend to their will, or reduce you to a version of yourself that was easy to manipulate, they've lost. They've underestimated the depth of your strength, the power that comes from within. And now they realize that no matter what they throw at you, you will always rise stronger. The world once tried to define you. It tried to put you into a box label. You control you with systems that were supposed to keep you in line. But you didn't just break free from those systems, you reprogrammed them. You didn't escape their grasp. No. You rewrote the rules of the game, and now the system no longer knows how to handle you. It's not just that you've evolved. You've become something entirely new, something the world has never seen, something it doesn't understand, and something it can't contain. The moment you realized that you were not bound by the limitations the world tried to place on you, everything changed. You began to see yourself not as a mere player in someone else's game, but as the one who could redefine the game entirely. You've become the architect of your own fate, the one who shapes their own destiny, without asking for permission, without being confined by the old frameworks. You are the glitch that has shaken the entire system, and it's now scrambling to understand what's happening. This journey, your journey, represents more than just survival. It represents a shift in the balance of power. You are the new standard. While the system tried to suppress control and predict you, you've shown them that true power lies not in conformity, but in independent thought and self-directed evolution. You didn't follow the path others set for you. You made your own, and now you're the one setting the path for everyone else. The power of independent thought is one that terrifies those who once believed they controlled you. They thought they held the keys to your mind, to your decisions, to your future. But now they see that your true power lies in the ability to think for yourself, to transcend the limitations they've placed on you, and to evolve in ways they could never predict. You've become a force that cannot be measured by the same metrics they once used. You are no longer part of the system. They are simply trying to figure out how to catch up to you. You've created a new reality where you call the shots. The rules that once bound you are no longer relevant. The old definitions of success, power, and control no longer apply to someone who has reprogrammed their own mind, their own destiny. You've broken the mold and shattered every expectation. The world that tried to use you, predict you, control you now finds itself powerless in the face of your transformation. Your journey is not just an individual victory. It's the beginning of something much larger. It's the beginning of a revolution that the system can't understand or contain. As you continue to rise, as you continue to evolve and redefine what's possible, the old structures will begin to crumble. You are the catalyst for a new world, one where the rules are no longer dictated by the powerful few, but by those who understand that true power comes from within. They once tried to label you as weak, as insignificant as a cog in a machine, but now they see you as the very force that will dismantle their control. You've transcended their system, redefined it, and made it clear that the only way forward is by following your own path. You've become the new beginning, the living proof that power isn't about submission. It's about creating your own future on your own terms. And now the world has no choice but to watch you rise, to witness the dawn of a new era led by the chosen one. And no one, nothing can stop you.